the last question is just story. It's kind of a story. One of the last questions that came in was to share how was the journey for me to be from lay person to becoming a monk. So there is some interest, I would say, I practice the Dhamma as a lay person, and I also had that question a lot, and I asked the monks, how was it, Bhante? Even now, it is a common question among monks. It is one of the first questions that happens once you start getting better a monk. It is very common. You ask the other monk, and what brought you to the Dhamma, or why do you became a monk? And there's some patterns that you can identify, but always the stories go in different ways. So I will share some of the how it happened. So first of all, I born with a very curious mind that I consider myself lucky because of that. Since a child, I was very curious, and I would say fortunately, this curiosity has not stopped. So that curiosity led me to search, fortunately, beyond. As you can imagine, I born in Mexico, so you can imagine that to be practicing Buddhism where there is no Buddhism now in Mexico, it's just arriving. Actually, well, it has come from some years before, but arriving. No, I cannot say arriving because it has some years there, and but it's developing. I think a wave now is happening. A big wave is coming, because in the centers before there was very few people in the past, little activity, but now young people is having a big wave of searching. So it is taking traction. So in the time that I was a child and young, the only thing I knew about Buddhism was the Buddha that is depicted as fat, a bit big in the belly, fat Buddha. And the only thing I knew about Buddhism is that, yes, you go touch the belly of the Buddha and your business goes well. You get money back. So actually, I didn't like Buddhism at all. When I was a child and when I was a teenager, I even felt some aversion towards Buddhism. So you will see how interesting then how I end up becoming a Buddhist monk. So to go quickly on the story, as you can imagine, I born in a Catholic country, Catholic family, and but I say this curiosity was a goal because it started making questions very, very soon. When I was a child, I started making questions. So at some point, I have to be very honest, because of the questions I was making, I was about 11 or 12 years old. I saw some questions I was asking, and they were not being answered satisfactorily. They would tell me, no, here you just believe, it is like this, you just believe me. But then I say, no, there must be something in the back, a reason. Can you explain more? No, you just believe, and this is the word, and that's it. So I never got that very, very well. So I continue making questions, and that curiosity led me to search in other traditions. When I was 12, actually, because I have to say, this is here, that is, I can say it because it's a fact. I saw some behavior on the priest that what he was saying, he was not doing. So that thing made some change inside. So at that time, although my father still sent me to the church, something inside got changed. So I started looking since I was 12-year-old, and that led me to try, when I was already 19 or 18, start with meditation, with Hinduism, Native American ceremonies with the drums and the dances that they do, the sweat lodge. That was for 8 years I stayed, and I became a musician. That was my profession, and because of it, I went to study in India, and I lived with a teacher who was a Muslim. So actually, I got very close experience, because if I lived on his house, I needed to do everything that he did. So in the Ramadan, I was going to the mosque and fasting and everything. So I got quite a good glimpse of what Islam is, because I was living with the teacher. So I experienced Hinduism, Native American, Catholicism, and Islam. So after this, my dear family, the mind just became very confused. And I have to add, remember that I don't like Buddhism. So Buddhism is out of the question. I don't like Buddhism because how come by rubbing the belly of a statue, you will do something spiritually? So I don't like Buddhism. I try all these things and I cannot get satisfactory answers. I make the same questions about birth and what happens after death and things. And in general, I was getting not very, it's my personal opinion, I didn't get very satisfactory answers, at least to what I was looking for, until somebody, I got into a depression, and I would say that was good. I got in a depression when I was 21, big depression and confusion in the mind. I have no answers and all this. So a friend in Japan suggests me, you know, there are some retreats where you just go and stay in silence. She didn't say it was Buddhist. That was lucky, because if she said it's Buddhism, I said, no, I don't go to that thing. So she just told me, it's just silence. You just go and nobody will talk to you in 10 days. You will just, and I said, yes, I need silence, because being a musician and having the depression and all this confusion, I really needed. So it really resonated. So I went to a first Goenka retreat when I was in Japan in 2001. And that really blew the mind, because when I go to the retreat, the teachers start talking about the Dhamma without saying that it's Buddhism still, because as you know, whoever has experience, it is not promoted. There are no Buddha rupas, or it is just promoted as contemplating and purifying your mind. So when he starts talking about the Dhamma, inside some joy arose and said, yes. He's talking about what I experience. Yes, it's like this, yes. And he continues saying, the mind is doing this, and the cause and effect is that, and then the mind will pick up this. And then I felt such a joy until the end of the retreat. I got the connection that actually that was the Buddha's teaching, but I was listening already the logic of it before. So that broke all the, I understood that I was wrong about what I believed about Buddhism. And then the journey started. So from then on, that's how I became to Buddhism. To go quickly to how I became a monk, after all that, I continued practicing for 4 or 5 years only on this line, but then the curiosity could not stop. I started making questions, and also there, as you know, there is some point that the teachers refer you because it's what it's meant to do, to teach you the meditation, the line of meditation, and to stay with the object. But I was saying, teacher, the mind is moving, emotions are arising, this and that. So at some point I needed a little bit more information. So I thought, why don't I go to the root? Where was the teacher from? He was from Burma. So let's go to Burma. So then I went to Burma, and I got the lucky connection with Shueomin Monastery, with Sayadaw U Tejaniya, and that I thought meditation was only sitting, but when I arrived to Shueomin, it happens that you can do walking, talking, eating meditation. So the whole panorama opened, and I fell in love, and I started practicing there, stay for coming and going for a few years. And the first time that I arrived, I saw that it was possible to ordain temporarily. And then I asked a friend who was a monk, is it possible, even if I come for a month, could I ordain? And he, as you know, in Thailand and in Burma, it is possible to do temporary ordinations. And inside, since I was young, I had the little itchiness about the robes. So then I said, oh, I will take the opportunity, and I ordained temporarily for 1 month. And that was another change, because I started feeling, well, it was difficult, I would say. Being a monk, as you can imagine, is even after years, it continued to be difficult at some points. But when I ordained and experienced the flow of the Sangha and the respect that is towards the teaching and the relation, that make a big imprint. So to cut the story, I ordained a few times temporarily because I still had a wife. I was married for 20 years together. And I was working on the music, giving concerts and composing music in different countries and traveling a lot and all that. So as whenever I had the opportunity, I was returning to the monastery and ordaining as soon as I could. I arrived. So one time, one teacher said, every time I arrive, he asks me, when do you arrive? 2 days ago, but I was already with robes. And then he asked me, do you ordain in the airport, or what do you do? How you do? Immediately when I was arriving, I was taking the robes. Then it comes a moment when it was a break moment into this monastic lay life. From 2001, practicing the Dhamma until 2008, I got a lot of confusion. What is it better? To practice as a lay person? Because the practice that a lay person does is the same that the monk does. The only thing is that the time that the people is devoting to the practice. We need to contemplate our mind, generate mindfulness, concentrate it, and purify it. We need to do, in the essence, avoid doing bad, do good, and that we need to do the same. But what was the difference between being a lay or a monk? So I have made questions to many monks, and I couldn't get the answer until the curiosity again pushed me to make an experiment. So I spoke with my wife that time, and then I said, okay, let's save money and let's go to retreat to Burma for 1 year. I want to try 6 months practicing in the monastery, only doing practice as a lay person, devoting to practice all the time, as with t-shirt and jeans. And the other 6 months, I will ordain as a monk. And then only making the experiment, I will know what is the difference between both. So I went in 2008, we went, she also ordained as a nun, and she also tried twice, she was a nun. So I went to that experiment, and my dear family, to cut the story, now I think you can imagine the outcome of that experiment. I tried practicing as a lay person, and I tried honestly to practice as a monk 6 months, and it might not be for everybody, but for the kind of mind that I carry, having a tendency towards desire and attachment, like having pleasures. I was in music, in the arts and beauty and all this. Having the frame, the space arranged and organized with the monastic rules, it turned out to be very beneficial. Because when I was with full credit, my dear family, it happens to anybody, I will say, but if you give full credit to anybody, if a child, we know it, if you give everything to a child without teaching him or letting him know how it's difficult to get things, generally we tend to take things for granted. We take things for granted and we become spoiled. So for me, I have to admit, when I was a lay person, having full credit for anything, I mean, you can eat whatever you wish, you can see as much, there are no trainings that will prevent you from going into the senses. Oh, the mind that I used to carry, I'm not proud about it. It was like a spoiled grown-up, because taking things for granted, of course, I pay for everything, so I should get the best quality, isn't it? So when you come to the monastic order and you depend on people, this conceit needs to be polished, because now you cannot choose, you cannot pick, you cannot ask, and the Buddha knew very well. So all these kind of trainings start shaping the mind. And if you ask me, Bante, could you tell me only one reason why did you become a monk after what I told you, after being a spoiled adult, picky, demanding, taking things for granted, and when things didn't go my way, I was getting angry and upset and really angry. My sister is here on the group. She can tell you how angry I could get in the past. I'm not proud about it, and I'm glad now it has at least decreased. Well, my dear family, if you ask me one single reason, I will say mental quality. That's it. That's why I became a monk. The kind of mind I was carrying and fostering and developing as a layperson, at least in my case, not very high quality. And I think becoming a monk, trying a monk temporarily or staying in the monastery for extended periods may help me to recognize the contrast between dedicating our life to wholesomeness and cultivation, mental stability, and all the good qualities. Then the contrast with what we take normal. I mean, everybody okay? Because you are asking a monk, huh? Everybody okay? Because I'm talking to everybody okay? Let me know. Because we are talking, I'm talking, check, you asking a monk, the monk is talking, but I was also a lay person, but everybody take whatever necessary and whatever is put it on the side if something is not digestible. But yes, I say the story. In my case, the quality was not very good. Last, for example, was even in respecting the 5 precepts, it was something that was coming often, and the quality of the mind decreased. Craving in many senses, aversion because things were not going the way I wished, etc., etc. So this contrast and that experiment in 2008 made me eventually gather the strength to make a choice. I spoke with my ex-wife. She also tried being a nun, and then we were practicing. Fortunately, we are Kalyanamitas. We were practicing together. So at some point, because of mental quality and also not wanting to continue turning because of not lust or craving and attachment, I didn't want it to continue suffering or rolling in samsara. That was also something that happened when I made a pilgrimage to India. So it was very shocking for me to see the place where the Buddha died, and I recollected, and that night I decided to continue with the robes. I thought at that time I was going to do another temporary ordination, but that night in that place, I said, mental quality is more worthy. How do I want to use this life? It's very precious and rare and fragile. And I have to say, my dear family, if we are here, it is the same for all of us. We are already with very good conditions. I think it's a very good question to all of us in any form, lay or monastic, whatever, to sit down and sincerely ask, with the time or years that I have left, which is uncertain, but let's say if we live as normal, like how many years, what do I want to do with this opportunity, with all these blessings? I think it's a very healthy question to have, because it will put the priorities where they belong. The most important things will go to the top, especially when we recollect that this opportunity is finite. So, for example, wasting time in the phone, which sometimes I also do. When you remember this, it's harder to do, harder to waste time, because we know this opportunity is very precious. Would I spend it scrolling through social media? No. What do I need to do before I leave? What I haven't do, what I haven't said? Maybe an apology, maybe I love you, maybe thank you to a person who I haven't said it, and to start our parents, our children, the husband or wife, if there is. So that made me become a monk. That journey has happened like this, and yet more gifts came up. So here I go to the place that I am now in. I become a monk, and I did it at the beginning because of self-relief of suffering or mental peace or mental quality, but I didn't imagine that my own practice was going to help others. I didn't foresee that, starting with my own mother and my own sisters. So when I go back to Mexico with the robes, and my mother tell me, I want to understand why you are so interested. What pulls you so much to be in the monastery? You don't take dinner. You have to follow all these things and all that. You have to cut all this. You cannot do music. What is there? And then my mother asked me, well, Mama, you want to know what is appealing? Well, I let you know. So then I started sharing the Dhamma in Mexico. My mother was there and was one of the main forces. And I have seen how the Dhamma has helped her in her life. She has some chronic pain from time to chronic pain that comes, and it seems that it's gonna come. The attitude was she was having two sufferings, as the Buddha says, physical pain and mental pain. But then when we explored the Dhamma, she decreased the mental suffering. And that, how can I give my own mother that gift? I couldn't get a medicine that will do it, but the Dhamma was doing it, and many other things, and also to my sisters. And then not just my family, but also friends and family. And now look what we are doing, all of us here. We are exploring. And as I know, it's not the monk, it is the Dhamma itself. It's the words of the Buddha that I suppose because of the benefits not we have gotten from the Dhamma in the years we have studied it, we are here. We are in love of the Dhamma. So then when the benefit of, when my own practice started benefited others, it gave another boost to continue, especially in the difficult moments that I have to say, and you can imagine them. Monastic life bring you to the edge. The Buddha knew very clearly, and this path is designed to bring us to our edges, because as long as we stay in our comfort zone, we will not grow. We will do what we know over and over and over again. But when the training, the Vinaya, the teachings, the wisdom, the reality bring us, we must allow this space, allow the Buddha, allow the teaching to, okay, I trust you, bring me to my edge, because then is when we will start doing inner yoga and grow. Grow in wisdom, grow in love, grow in compassion, grow in all the good qualities. So my dear family, the adventure is still on. I don't know what is going to be the outcome of this. As you saw some images at the beginning, there is the monastery being already built in Mexico. I mean, still on the development. How this monastery came out to be, with the savings of the lay work of me and my wife, when I became a monk, we knew that we want, anyway, if we are dying, everything is gonna stay, let's better put it on some place that can benefit more people for further. So we decided to use those savings to build a place in Mexico. And then people, it's not yet open, because as we finished building it, the COVID happened, and then I came to Asia, and as you know, these years has been like that. So the plan by now is to return and start sharing, because there is a lot of thirst, and if the Buddha's teaching is a suffering, well, I think there is plenty everywhere. So the monks will not be out of work, because if there is something in the world, is a lot of suffering, and it tends, according to how the tendency of the world, it looks like a little bit more might come if climate change continue growing, etc., etc. So we must be ready. We must train now. So, well, my dear family, that's the story. Here I am, here we are. I don't know what is coming next as anybody, but I have trust and faith and sada, because I have already seen that what the Buddha said in many occasions is true. I still have a long way to go, but what he describes step by step, clearly and logically, what can I say? The answers continue to be consistent. The answers continue to be logic. And now I can say, after the curiosity I carry, that I have more answers than questions. And I think that is a good place to be. I just have trust, and I'm thinking to continue. And well, my dear family, it's an invitation to all of us in any position. Remember, we can do in any place we are. Obviously, there are places more suitable. A quiet place is more suitable. And if all our conditions around are facing one single goal, which is mental purity and development, I mean, I would invite anybody, whenever possible, take a retreat, or if it is possible, not in all the monasteries, but ordain temporarily, have an experience, experiment, and let the facts speak. Let's put our priorities on top. And if you ask me what is the priority, it's freedom. inner freedom, freedom from suffering, freedom from ultimate suffering. I see freedom as a worthy task to use this energy, time, and resources that we have. Freedom for ourselves, freedom for our family, and mental quality, and develop our noblest potential. The Buddha's teaching is designed for that only. How we do it and in which way, we can adapt, and the invitation is to continue working. Well, my dear family, that we can leave the story there. I hope it was not too long. And anyway, how is everybody feeling? I would like to, let's hear another voice and think, how are you? How is it now? We have, if everybody's energy is okay. That's it from my side. I hope the seeds, whatever Dhamma seeds arise, fall in fertile ground, and we cultivate them together. It's a pleasure to do it as a family.